Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdoğan was sworn in for his third term in office after winning the presidential runoff election last week. Russian authorities reported that at least 3 civilians were killed by Ukrainian bombings in Belgorod province. And the death toll in a triple train crash in India rose to more than 280 people, while over 1,000 are reported injured. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. On Saturday, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdoğan was sworn in for his third term in office after winning the presidential runoff election last week. The swearing-in ceremony began at 3 p.m. local time at the Grand National Assembly in Ankara. As scheduled, Nationalist Movement Party leader Devlet Bahçeli, as acting president of the Turkish Grand National Assembly, presented Erdoğan with his official oath of office. The event was attended by heads of states and governments, ministers, and other representatives from more than 70 countries around the world, including Venezuela's President Nicolás Maduro, Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, Azerbaijan's President Ilham Aliyev, and Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan.
You swear on my honor and dignity in the presence of the great nation, Turkish nation and history, that I will protect the existence and independence of the state, the indivisible integrity of the homeland and the nation, the unconditional and unquestionable sovereignty of the nation.
After the swearing-in ceremony, President Erdogan visited Atatürk's mausoleum to pay respect to the nation's founder, Mustafa Kemal Atatürk. At the mausoleum, the Turkish president laid a wreath at the foot of the monument to the nation's founder. The visit had a special symbolic significance since it conveyed a message of continuation of Mustafa Kemal Atatürk's ideas.
To me, with a ratio of 52.58%, our nation has shown to me kindness, and we feel the bliss of serving our nation for 5 more years. With this, the presidential election, the presidential executive system has taken a vote of confidence from our people. For the next 5 years to come, we will work relentlessly to make our century of Turkey come true.
Mustafa Kemal Atatürk was the founder and the first president of the Republic of Turkey. He was born on March 12, 1881, in Thessaloniki. As a military and political leader, he led the struggle for Turkish independence after World War I and the collapse of the Ottoman Empire. During his rule, he carried out a series of reforms that modernized the country, such as adopting the Latin alphabet, abolishing the Islamic legal system, and promoting gender equality and minority rights. His surname Atatürk means father or ancestor and was given to him on November 24, 1934. Kemal Atatürk died of cirrhosis in Istanbul on November 10, 1938. After the swearing-in ceremony at Parliament, the Turkish president moved to the presidential complex in Ankara, where he was accompanied by heads of states and governments and other international delegations. During his speech, Recep Tayyip Erdoğan stressed that his government will continue to produce works and services for Turkey. Erdoğan indicated that his administration will embrace all 85 million citizens, regardless of their political views, origins, creeds, or religion. By the end of the day, the Turkish president is expected to host a dinner in honor of his guests at the Kankaya mansion and then announce the new members of the cabinet. The 69-year-old president begins his new 5-year term amid a host of domestic challenges ahead of, including a battered economy, pressure for the repatriation of millions of Syrian refugees, and the need to rebuild the nation after a devastating earthquake in February that killed 50,000 people and leveled entire cities in the south of the country. During his oath-taking speech, Erdogan pledged to protect the existence and independence of the state and to abide by the constitution and the laws of the secular republic.
I would like to state that I'm grateful to God for He has blessed us with the chance of serving Turkey and the Turkish nation for 5 more years. With their votes, with their kindness and support, My nation, all members of my nation, I would like to extend my gratitude to each and every one of them.
President Erdogan highlighted that in this new period, the Turkish government should learn from mistakes they committed in the past in order to build a better future.
From the past, from the mistakes of the past, we should draw lessons and be exerting efforts to build the future. In the post-election period, we have always made our accounts and have had a tradition to renew itself, to update itself, tackling our mistakes, our shortcomings, further strengthening what we have been resilient about. We have made it to this very day, and following every election, we opened a new page.
Also on Saturday, hours after being sworn in for his third term in office, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdoğan presented his new cabinet. Composed of 18 members, the new cabinet highlights the name of Mehmet Şimşek as finance minister, a position he held between 2009 and 2015, and will have ahead of him the ingenious task of healing the beating Turkish economy and stabilizing the lira, which has lost 20% of its value in 1 year and 85% since the economist left office. Another striking change is the appointment of Hakan Fidan, head of Turkey's secret services since 2015, as foreign minister, replacing Mevlut Cavusoglu, who has been in office since that same year. Only 2 ministers remain in office, including the health minister, Fahrettin Koca, popular for his handling of the COVID-19 pandemic. The only woman in the cabinet will be the Minister of Family and Labor, Mahinur Özdemir. Let's now take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. All the stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back from the South. On Friday, Leonidas Issa, one of the most charismatic leaders of the Confederation of Indigenous Nationalities of Ecuador, withdrew his candidacy from the early presidential elections to be held in August. During a press conference, Jairo Cartingus Conay, president for the coastal region, said the decision to withdraw Issa's candidacy was made because there are no favorable conditions for the indigenous peoples to present their own candidate. Moreover, Issa explained that there were also other disagreements with the Pachacutic Party, since the list of candidates for Congress did not include social leaders capable of guaranteeing adequate representation of grassroots organizations. By renouncing his presidential candidacy, Issa effectively leaves the way open for the presidential binomial of the Citizens' Revolution, which is a political group led by former President Rafael Correa, to become the only leftist opposition option in the upcoming elections. In Argentina, June 3rd marks the 8th anniversary of the first Ni Una Menos march, the feminist movement that was born in 2015 after the femicide of Chiara Páez, a 14-year-old teenager in the province of Santa Fe. Feminist collectives from all Argentine provinces are mobilizing on the weekend to commemorate the 8 years of the Ni Una Menos march, with demands for the femicides that remain unpunished in different districts and to speak out against gender violence. The Observatory of Gender Violence, Ahora que sí nos ven, assures that since the appearance of the movement Ni Una Menos, an average of 1 femicide took place every 31 hours in all Argentina, according to a report prepared by the feminist organization. The government of Panama prepares a security operation in the Darien jungle to combat criminal groups. On Friday, the Panama government announced an operation to combat the criminal groups that profit from thousands of migrants crossing these areas on the way to the United States. According to Panama's Security Minister, Juan Manuel Pino, in the first 5 months of the year, more than 166,000 migrants coming from South America have crossed the Darien. Pino detailed that the police forces of Panama will increase the territorial control on the border due to the increase of crimes committed in this region. He also assured that the so-called Operation Choco seeks to prevent people from being assaulted and abused in Panamanian territory. In Peru, an officer admits police used lethal weapons in crackdown on anti-government protests. The publication had access to the testimony given to the public prosecutor Ernesto Rojas by police officer Javier Rivadeneira, who was part of a contingent from the National Police's Special Operations Directorate sent from Lima to Juliaca, in the southern Andean region of Puno, in the face of large opposition mobilizations. He pointed out that for this mission, each of the agents had a 7.62 caliber assault rifle with 4 magazines containing a total of 120 bullets, a provision for war. The witness stated that the group he commanded was nearly overrun by demonstrators attempting to take over Juliaca Airport, which he contained by firing on the ground without casualties. Russian authorities reported that at least 3 civilians were killed by Ukrainian bombings in Belgorod province. According to local sources, heavy bombings were launched on Saturday by Kiev forces against several settlements located in the Russian province of Belgorod, bordering Ukraine. It was also reported that about 15 other people were wounded as a result of the bombings and are currently being treated in hospitals. The shell fragments also damaged several houses, infrastructure, a gas pipeline, and a power line. In some cities, the civilian population remains without water and electricity supply or phone connection. Operational and emergency services are on site repairing the damage left by the attack. Russia's Security Council prepares measures against Western sanctions against the nation. The Russian Security Council is continuously working on measures to block any attempt by the West to provoke an economic crisis in the country. The head of the Security Council and the President of the Russian Federation, Vladimir Putin, stressed the day before at a meeting with the permanent members of the organization that they are focusing their efforts on developing measures to block the efforts of Western countries to destabilize the situation in the country. Although many countries have condemned the special military operation that Russia launched in Ukraine in February 2022, the nation's Security Council is planning to continue working on strategies to circumvent any kind of blockade by creating new economic alliances to prevent a crisis in the nation. On Saturday, 175 nations agreed to develop a legally binding agreement on plastic pollution by 2024, prompting a major step towards reducing greenhouse gas emissions from plastic production, use, and disposal. After 5 days, representatives of 175 nations and 1,500 experts meeting in Paris at the so-called Plastic Summit agreed to draw up the first draft of a legally binding international treaty for consideration at the next meeting in Kenya in November. The aim is to have a final text by the end of 2024, covering the entire life cycle of plastics. According to UN figures, 400 million tons of plastic waste is generated every year, and 85% of these single-use items end up in landfills or polluting rivers, oceans, and landscapes. teleSUR English continues to grow. You can now tune in from 33 different African countries through StarSat, dial 461, and enjoy our Latin American alternative broadcasts. One final short break, we'll be right back. Don't go away. Welcome back from the south. The death toll of Friday's triple tragedy in India has risen to more than 280, while over 1,000 are reported injured. According to the Indian Minister of Railways, Ashwini Vaishnaw, a high-level inquiry has been ordered into the collision to understand what caused the crash. Earlier Saturday morning, teams of rescuers scrambled over the tangle of wreckage and overturned train carriages in a desperate search for survivors. Officials say the death toll was suspected to rise further as many passengers are thought to be pinned on the train cars. India's extensive rail network, one of the largest in the world, was built more than 160 years ago under British colonial rule. Nowadays, the network runs about 11,000 trains every day, over 67,000 miles of tracks. It suffers from aging infrastructure and poor maintenance, factors often cited in accidents. In this context, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi shared an emergency meeting on the accident with Home Minister Amit Shah and other officials. The authorities announced a day of mourning in the state and compensation of more than $12,000 for the dead, around $2,500 for the seriously injured, and $606 for those with minor injuries. It is the worst roadway accident in the Asian country for 2 decades. In Palestine, the Israeli occupation authorities demolished 43 structures in East Jerusalem and the West Bank over the last 2 weeks of May. According to the UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs in Palestine, as a result of the actions of the occupation forces, some 56 Palestinians, including 33 children, were displaced. The office also warned that the livelihoods of more than 200 people were affected following the demolitions carried out by Tel Aviv. According to the UN, since the beginning of 2023, some 11 houses and 1 agricultural structure have been demolished by punitive demolitions, an increase from the 14 structures for the in 2022. Punitive demolitions are forms of collective punishment and are illegal under international law.
The Israeli government is trying to exterminate everything that is Arab on Palestinian land. Every Arab feature, just like it is happening here. We can see that they executed demolitions in this place, and they even uprooted trees with a high Arab symbolism for this land. The Israeli government needs to know that they can demolish our houses, but they cannot take away our love for this land or our connection to it.
The Syrian government announced the continued looting of its natural wealth by the U.S. forces illegally present in the northeast of the country. Activists in the town of Al-Jarubiyah reported that a caravan of 45 tanker trucks loaded with hundreds of tons of oil stolen from the fields in Al-Jazeera region left for northern Iraq through the illegal Al-Mahmudiyah crossing. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Expatriates described these actions as mandatory that violates the international humanitarian law and impoverishes the Syrian people and prolongs their suffering. It also demanded the U.S. administration to stop this looting, which has caused losses estimated at almost $111 billion US. They are also calling for compensation to be paid to the Syrian people. The outbreak of violence in Senegal after opposition politician and presidential candidate Ousmane Sonko was sentenced to 2 years in jail has left at least 10 people dead. An army spokesman said another person was killed on Friday in the southwestern town of Cape Skirring, after 9 people died on Thursday. Protests continued yesterday with demonstrators erecting barricades using burning tires and vehicles, while police cracked down with tear gas. The protest began on Thursday following the sentencing of opposition leader Ousmane Sonko to 2 years in prison for corruption of minors. Known for his anti-system discourse, the leader criticizes bad governance, corruption, and French neocolonialism. We have come to the end of this news briefing, and you can find these and many other stories on our website, telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.